Facebook.
Yep, we're up.
Hell yeah. Is the title right?
It says starting soon, but it says live. 1 second.
Cool. Actually, how do I flip that? Pre-show. Alright, cool, we're in.
I can share this even though it says starting soon, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
I wonder if it would let me change it to my music thingy. Yeah, we should be good.
Got it up. We're running.
Oh yeah, we did it. Okay, and I want to change to Mike Salone.
Still need a foot? Are you good?
I'm good. I'm good.
Tony, is that a homage shirt?
Huh?
Is that a homage shirt?
It's a, I believe so. Yeah, breakaway.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, the guy that Dom has design our stuff.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, cool. I just turned the speaker off. Who designs it?
What's his name?
Made by Nyu or
Nio?
Nio? NYO.
NYO?
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
It's he designs most of our breakaway stuff. The staff. The
Gotcha.
hoodies and our staff.
Guys always have swag.
Yeah.
Sorry if there's a little background noise. My heater's gonna kick off here in just a minute, and then.
No, I don't hear anything. But I also have this music in my ear.
Your heater's gonna kick off? That sounds like a terrible time. What's going on?
Yo, we already got 7 people in here. Shout out to everybody joining us. We're going to get started soon. If you have questions for David Michael or Tony Desaro of the Passionate DJ podcast, let us know in the chat. James and I will be monitoring the entire show. Thanks for being here.
He even gets a pronunciation right.
I know.
Man.
I listened to the podcast enough. I finally got it. I definitely was one of the Tony Desaros until I started listening to the podcast.
I was watching one of your guys' videos with the new controller. It was
Oh,
pretty,
did you get the Rain 1?
yeah, pretty sweet, huh? It looked pretty sweet.
It's it lives up to the hype, man. For like if you're really into that like turntablism style of DJing and you're already in that Serato environment, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Gotcha.
You know, like somebody like even you, Mike, with your Rain 12 setup. You know, this is like a kind of an all-in-one semi-portable version of that.
Bro,
I mean,
don't even tempt me, man. I already got it in my Amazon Save Later cart. I know I'll probably get it, but I can't while I'm not really working that much. But it's tough because it is, man. It's like, hey, did you want turntablism in a controller platform? Here it is. I bet you do.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, some of the comments that were rolling in on like, you know, because we've created a bunch of content around that, you know, a couple videos, and a lot of comments were like, does it really, like, this has been done before, you know, there was the Rain, or not the Rain, the Newmark NS7 line. And I was like, no, I mean, I mentioned that in the review, the NS7, but this is different. I'm telling you, like, it's not just it has motorized platters. It's like, take your Rain 12s and then shrink them down and attach them to a somewhat simplified, you know, Rain mixer and charge $1,500 for it for this kind of all-in-one, you know, just add laptop. You're good to go.
Yeah, man. I had the NS7.
It's just like build quality-wise and stuff. It's similar to your Rain 12s.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I had the NS7 and the NS7 III at one point, and they were both great. They were just heavy as all hell. Like, I think they probably streamlined some of the stuff on the one, and I'm glad they did 2 channels, man. I don't know why all these intro level controllers are having 4 channels all the time, but yeah, I was glad to see it only had 2 channels and they tried to bring the weight down a little bit.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not a shit talker about can I curse on?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, about the Newmark line, like those are great controllers, and I've recommended them in various guides and stuff on Passionate DJ before. So, it's like this is kind of an evolution of that idea where it's more like. Well, you guys saw what Fatty was able to do. Fatty Lumpkin, shout out. What he was able to do with that, literally just walking into the room for the first time and encountering that controller, like it's intuitive if you're a turntablist. You know
what's funny is like with the only reason I need 4 channels is if I'm opening and they tell me that I have to go on 1 and 4. Or if one of the channels just, stops working, it's an old mixer, and then I'm like, oh, I finally have use for channel 1 and 4, or whatever. But really, I only need 1 channel because all I do is play premixes. So.
Where else it could be nice is in different kinds of gigs. Like one example I have is I used to do fashion shows, and so I would have to be somewhat reactive with my DJing. So because I didn't exactly know when the MC was going to come out and introduce the next fashion line or whatever. So I would always have this a third deck on my whatever digital setup, and it would have something that was more like what do you want to call it, like a soundscape or something ambient or something that I could use as a transition kind of between anything.
That's still a big thing. A lot of restaurants that transition into a party will have like a Spotify or something on outside channel. Fireproof does that.
Any kind of like mobile gig kind of setup, it's handy to have those extra things
for sure.
Your channels. I'm going to turn the heater off real quick so that doesn't kick on. Sorry.
It's okay. Tony's got his toboggan on. We're good.
Y'all exposed to this.
I'm still cold, man. If it's not 70, I'm freezing.
In the Zoom room.
Let's see. I think this is the Fatty Lumpkin video. I'm trying to show people who are watching. They probably can't listen to it. I guess I could do that too. The Fatty Lumpkin video from you guys' channel.
Yeah, youtube.com/passionatedj.
Oh, I don't know that. Come on, man. This is about finding the video.
The people might
the first
not
one
know.
up.
Yeah,
oh yeah,
gotta
that's
get
true.
the plugs in
Let
early.
them plug them in.
Yeah.
Yes, they can see that video. I'm gonna change this up actually though. All right.
You know what's funny, Mike, is I have the same camera as you, but I'm in like 2 pixels. We got to talk about this later.
Which camera?
I got the Logitech.
This is different. This is the Kaio. It's all about lighting. Okay. It's all about lighting.
Yeah, but I think mine has a focus issue. I just keep forgetting to fix it. Let's be real.
Yeah. I'll send you a video. Don't forget to use that mic. We got you too. That's the Columbus DJ podcast mic.
Bro, it's right here, but it's not this that's wrong that I need to fix, but it's the speaker that I need to fix. It's fine.
Well,
this works.
Them out.
We'll get it working.
If you want though, I can
pretend.
It looks more professional if you have extra mics.
Yeah,
I got the stand too. I'm ready to go. I'm
actually just holding the mic. The arm is just here for show.
We intentionally switched our podcast format to using headsets like probably 2 years ago at least now. Because part of the reason is this room where we record is a big room.
Yeah.
So it's rather than try to treat the whole damn room and reduce standing waves and echoes and reverb in the room, it was like, why don't we just bring the mics as close as possible to our faces, and then we don't have to gain them up as much, and it becomes much less of an issue. So
yeah, man, that's the way to go.
Yeah, and so we lose a little bit of low end from our normal mics, which are the Audio-Technica 2100s. They're kind of like an early starter podcast mic, but they have really nice full sound. So I compensate a little bit for it on our mixer. I boost our lows and take the mids out a little bit and try to get a similar sound. But other than that, it's been kind of a godsend to just not worry so much about the room and just bring the mic right up to your face,
Yeah, man, the level of detail you guys put in that podcast is crazy. I remember when you guys were doing the audio ones, you used to go in and cut out all the ums, like the long ums from each video.
Yes.
Total dedication.
Dude, that's a whole thing, man. There's a lot of ums even when like recording Lit's vocals or just I heard like just listening to myself on other people's podcasts, like, because you just even if you're prepared, you're just like, how do I want to word this? And you hear like politicians do it a lot, and you're like, these people are like literally supposed to be professional talkers, and here they are just saying, So
that's my first piece of advice as a content creator is either get over that and just accept that you're going to have ums and ahs in your content, or get better at speaking and not doing it. Yeah. And that only comes with experience. And so, we've had a combination of both. I won't say I don't ever cut anything out. Mm-hmm. If I hesitate for 10 or 15 seconds on something, I'll cut that out of the show. Right. Because that's just bad radio, right? And we still have a strong audio-only audience. So we still cater to that person who's listening in their car or whatever. Yeah. But at the same time, we've got so this coming Monday will be our 214th hour-long or so podcast episode. Wow. And that's in addition to everything else that we put together for our YouTube channel and all that stuff. So eventually you just get better at it.
Listen, this is not financial advice, Michael.
Uh-oh.
Just because it says buy Dogecoin, that's just text that I have on here. It's not financial advice. Don't sue us, bro.
No, I was gonna say you have to do that for the lawyers, right? Well, hold on. I'm gonna run the intro real quick. Let's do it. We can talk over it though. It just happens. It's kind of like a running joke that we just talk over the intro. Everyone else sees it.
Okay.
Pretty banging.
It's cool.
James, I think I'll take this one.
It's all good.
Okay. Shit.
Cool. Yo, guys, what's up? Welcome to, I almost said Passionate DJ Podcast. This is the Columbus DJ Podcast. We're in the building with the Passionate DJ Podcast. Tony Desaro, David Michael. We've already been talking like crazy. Tips are flying. Gear opinions are flying. But before we talk to them, I want to talk to my co-host, DJ Corrupt. You're telling everybody to buy Dogecoin, but we're not allowed to tell you to do that, right?
You just can't say that it's financial advice, and it's not. I'm just, I bought Dogecoin, so here I am.
Which day did you get in on?
I've been in for a long time before it went viral, but then I sold. But then I sold when it went up, and now I'm back in. And I'm watching this Reddit movement, right? And I'm watching the Wall Street Bets thing, and we just live in a crazy world where we have the internet now, and we use it all the time to make a living, and we can make a living in the stock market as well. So. And
did you get any GameStop, AMC?
No, that shit scared me, man.
Yeah,
that scares me. Like, especially looking at it today, I'm like, thank God. But I do feel I know some people that are close to me that did and made money, and then I know some people that lost money. So, it's different for everyone.
It's like anything else. If you're smart about it, if you know what you're doing, you're gonna be all right. And if you go in, gambling like without knowing anything, you're probably not gonna be okay. But Back to the DJing. I just want to get straight into it. Guys, if you could please just introduce yourself. And David Michael, I wanted to start with you, buddy.
Yeah, so my name's David Michael. I'm the host and creator of Passionate DJ, and our main show is called the Passionate DJ Podcast. We are currently a bi-weekly show dedicated to the art and science of mixing music. Basically, it's we create a lot of podcasts and videos for DJs and other lovers of music. We also have a segment of audience who aren't DJs. They just kind of like the content we put together. So we've been at this in some form or another since 2013. That's when the blog started, and then the podcast started about 6 months after that as an audio-only kind of radio show. It's since evolved into a little more of a produced thing. Tony's been kind of instrumental in bringing more musical elements into the show, more performances, and a lot of that kind of stuff. So we've been, we've never been afraid to experiment with the format of the show. This coming Monday, we'll have our 214th show. Woo. So we've experimented a lot, and we like to keep pushing the envelope on that stuff. Personally, as a DJ, I got into this in the mid-2000s, maybe 05, 06. I got into, I guess, whatever you want to call it, underground dance music, kind of through the side entrance of trance. Eventually, discovered techno and house and drum and bass and all that other kind of stuff, and found kind of a local family, in that. That was kind of how I met Tony years ago. I had an early set. I had these turntables. For the streaming audience, if you can see on video, I had these Technics 1200s. And I had an old set of CDJs, CDJ 700s, which I still have for kicks, like top loading, like really old, like didn't play MP3s, none of that stuff.
I gotta Google that.
Stutter cue, so like when you would cue stuff up, it would just go instead of that kind of like a vinyl sound. So it was like old mid 90s stuff, and that's what I learned to beat match on and stuff. Eventually, I got into Tractor and digital platforms and stuff, and started getting involved in gigs in the local scene and stuff. And I guess that's kind of where we move into Tony. That's how I met him. And I don't know, maybe 2 years or so after I started Passionate DJ as a blog, I reached out to Tony and I was like, hey, I think I could use some more perspective and some help, building this brand. And so he's been part of it ever since. And I'll pass it over to him. But real quick, I do want to say, I want to make sure we shout out the rest of our team, because we're actually half of a quartet. So Mo Dingo and Trip Turlington are also our other co-hosts and team members. And they've been instrumental in our content and building us to who we are now. So,
David, before we get to Tony, real quick, you guys had me on the podcast. It was actually one of my first podcasts that I've ever been on, and it was a great experience. You guys are very professional, and obviously you have a great setup there. You guys take it seriously, but also you guys have a lot of experience. I know Tony a little bit better, but I know his experience is just insane. Talk about how much enjoyment it is to have that experience doing something like this, and how exciting it is to share that kind of knowledge with everyone.
Are you asking me or
yeah,
Tony?
just before we get to Tony.
Well, that was the biggest reason I reached out to Tony. So I mean, it's kind of it all works together, because my experience with DJing and production and events and all that stuff is, I don't know, self-taught, side hustle stuff that I just picked up along the way. When I first started DJing, I did that thing where I was like, I have nowhere to play, so I'll create my own night and start playing there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so I found a kind of a dive bar that, at the time wasn't doing very well, but historically had sort of a rave music culture and hip-hop culture that was present there. Night Owl back in the day.
Nice.
In the Oregon district in Dayton. And at the time, they were just kind of not really doing anything. So I talked to the person who was in charge of kind of managing and running the bar, and I was like, you guys need some events, and she agreed. And so that was how I got my first gigs, playing in front of people, in front of people, full stop.
Sure.
So, my entire history with music, except for, so I'm a piano player, but outside of that, as far as like performing in front of anybody, creating music, DJing, it was all just stuff that I learned. I either taught myself or I learned from web forums or whatever. And when I came into the scene, I was really interested in the sort of underground rave culture, but in the mid 2000s, there was like a severe dip in that kind of stuff, especially in Dayton. So I kind of felt like I was coming into a rave wasteland where I just kept hearing these stories about this, back 5 or 10 years prior, where there was these massive warehouse parties with a couple thousand people in them, and I needed to reach out to people in my circle who had more experience with that time period, where I was just, I was too young. I wasn't the right age to experience the golden rave era.
Sure.
So I needed to reach out to the Trip Turlingtons and the Tonys and the other people in my world who, were very involved with that scene. And it just turned into Tony becoming like a podcast host, and now is kind of an integral part of booking our content in general, really.
Which
getting
is
guests
odd
on.
because I
that.
hate a microphone and I hate a camera.
I know you do, man. Hey, big shout out to the Athens boys, Bardicus and B-Funk.
B-Funk.
Yep, they're here. B-Funk, do some extra squats for Katie. And Tony, let's go over to you, man. What do you want to talk about?
Let's see. My name is Tony Desaro. I've been DJing about 30 years. I started in the early club days. Moved into the rave scene in the mid-90s. And then DJing kind of took a back seat to what I do now, which is stage managing for Prime Social Group.
Mm-hmm.
We throw music festivals all over the United States, Mexico, and Spain. So my focus has kind of went from DJing to that. DJing took a back seat. And I'm a co-host on David's podcast, and I'm director, outreach, call people, try and plan some things, That's kind of where I'm at now.
I just want everybody to realize he just said 30 years of DJ experience before we continue. So,
Tony, you're working with some artists too, right? Is there anything you want to talk about with that?
Yeah, I manage an electronic group. One was from Dayton, other was from Iowa, but they both now reside in Colorado. They're future-based. Their name is Crystal Grid. It's DJ infused with the live sax and live drumming, which they actually kind of started to take off for a minute, but then COVID hit, and they split off to do their own projects. Cody's doing a lo-fi project. Jared's doing some meditation music. They just came back together to do a sample pack, which is based, it's all sounds that they went and recorded with their field recorder at Red Rocks.
So such a
So
great
the
idea.
sample pack is all original sounds, Red Rocks, from Red Rocks. So they went and they drummed on the front row, the railing, the seating, like everything, all the way through Red Rocks, and created a huge sample pack and just released it 2 days ago.
that's
So-
amazing.
Do you remember what
Love that.
platform that was on?
Say again?
Do you remember what platform that sample pack was on? Probably like a Splice or Loop Masters or something?
I'm not
Gotta
sure.
be.
No, it's all over their socials.
That's really cool. We love our lo-fi music. We talk about it all the time on here.
Mhm.
Yeah, Cody
Tony-
he started it right when COVID hit. Cody started his project, and his first release is a little over 2 million streams now.
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's doing
Be sure
really,
to send
really
that to
well.
us so we can promote it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We shout them out, and I guess you have incentive to shout them out because you manage them, but I don't. I just like promoting those two because they're, how would you describe? They're kind of like this perfect crossroads of hustler and musician,
Yes.
and when I say hustler, I don't mean that in a negative context. I mean they work their asses off.
For sure.
And I've been able to because of Tony, I've been able to be a fly on the wall and see a lot of the stuff that they do kind of behind the scenes, and they're always on top of it. And, a lot of the work that they do as a band, Crystal Grid, is dependent on a live element. They base all their performances and all their sets and their live music, or their produced music and all that stuff around their live experience. And COVID, really got in the way of all that. And so they took some time to do some solo projects, and then they, start knocking those out of the park. And then they're like, okay, it's time to start coming back to Crystal Grid, and they're just right back on that hustle. And it's just really like I'm willing to vouch for them, and put the Passionate DJ stamp on that, because it's exactly the kind of thing that we want to support is people who have that kind of forward energy and passion for DJing and other types of electronic performance.
Yeah, I want to go back to the stage management thing, Tony, real quick.
Yeah.
You know, I've been fortunate to help assist you on some festivals. And then, you know, I got to play some as well. Everything was always ran perfectly. You're constantly on the radio, looking over your shoulder. You know, anything at any point could go wrong. And, you know, you have such a big responsibility. Just talk about, you know, that experience and what's the craziest event that you've had to manage so far. It's got to be a number fest, I think, right?
Yeah, I tell you. So when I went in to stage manage it via PSG, I was really the only guy with them that knew the CDJ setup at the time. So I was just hooking up their DJ gear. And then when we went down to Puerto Vallarta, you know, we took Chris Schroeder with us. He was our production manager, and all I was doing was DJ gear, you know, and sometimes direct support, whatever. And then when we came back from Puerto Vallarta, that was our first year with Numberfest. And holy shit, like it was crazy. The first year it was so difficult because it went from just a party in the field to a full-on production, to where all of your buddies couldn't be up on stage and hanging out, because now you have national artists, you know, and everybody that was up there knew Dom, so everybody felt, you know, that they could be up there. And I was just dipping my toes into it, and I'm not really an assertive person. You know, I'm really kind of like, I'm kind of like just very passive, right? So DJ EV, I'll never forget this moment. You know, in Numberfest, people during those performances, those crowds were crazy. People were throwing full beer cans at the stage, footballs, shoes, whatever they had in their hands. You know, like just they thought it was funny, I guess, whatever. I don't know. But EV was playing, and we had a rollout DJ booth that was on the Red Bull stand, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody from the crowd threw a full 2 liter of Sprite, perfectly lands in the truss with the cap off, all the way down on top of two 1200s and a TTM mixer. And it was that was the type of shit that went on like the first couple years. You know what I mean? Just really crazy stuff. But as we got more organized and it just became a pretty tight ship, you know, and that's where we're at now.
For sure.
And that was
the transitions of bands versus DJs too. Like everyone had a different rig, it seemed like, for the most part, you know, and you guys were rolling in. You guys had like 2 minutes to like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
I watched Tony morph into this like guy who set up DJ equipment to like the guy who set up the bands. Like you almost had to like pick that up over time because it like those worlds were morphing together, you know?
Yeah. The first year that we had that was Wiz Khalifa. And that was my first wow moment of being a stage manager. You know, like, holy shit, like Wiz Khalifa's right here, the band, and I'm just like kind of being a fanboy in a sense, you know, without being a fanboy. And he's got a full five-piece band with him. So it was on the early Numberfest stage. It wasn't super big, so it was hard to get all of that in and shuffled around, you know, with, you know, a mobile Red Bull DJ rig, and you know, it was pretty crazy, but we made it.
Fast forward to, you know, recent Haunted Fest. I know you're helping put the entire stage together, so it's crazy how that evolved, right?
Yeah, it's definitely morphed into a monster. That's for sure.
Hey, Tony, I had a question about that as well. I think a lot of, like, a running theme through our show has been kind of like life after DJing, or like life kind of besides DJing. And I think stage management is a great, you know, hop into this career. You know, you already work with audio, you already kind of know the gigging space. But what are some skills that maybe you wouldn't think about that a stage manager needs to have? You mentioned like being assertive. I'm assuming like knowing all the different types of gear, not just like your own. Are there any other skills that you really would suggest if someone wanted to make that jump from DJing into stage management?
Definitely organizational skills, because I mean, advancing a show time slots for artists when they come in to do sound checks, how long it takes them to sound check. I mean, there's so many things. Organization is a huge skill to have. Knowing the gear, knowing being a people person, that's for sure. Being able, because I mean, you're dealing with so many different attitudes, you know, so many different egos. A tour manager could just, you know, land from an airport and come into you and just be in the worst mood, but you still have to smile. You know what I mean? You have to take all that in and be able to not get angry at them or not get mad at them. You know what I mean? Because they've just been through so much. They just went to a show the night before, got on a plane, came in. Now they have to do a 2-hour sound check. And if something is running behind by even 10 minutes, that's 10 minutes sleep that they don't get after, you know, they do their sound check. So
if I can jump in for a second, if there's one thing I've learned from watching Tony work, it's that you have to basically, in that business, in that industry, be willing and able to accept somebody's abuse in the moment when stress is high and the show must go on and all that stuff is happening and you're on a timetable. You know, somebody might come at you with some shit that is not cool, and you have to not be the grenade that blows up when that happens. You just have to put out the fire, because that's what they're going to remember. You know, everyone involved is going to remember if Tony put out that fire. They're also going to remember if he hauls off and hits him in the face, right? They're going to remember for the wrong reasons. He's going to get a bad reputation in the industry, and that's why Tony doesn't have that kind of reputation, you know, is because he handles his business and everyone else's, even when it's not fair. You know what I mean?
Tony, I have a story related to that, and I know you won't remember this because it was so subtle. Like, and I didn't actually yell at you, but when I was doing my intro at Haunted Fest one year. It was like overly.
I can probably finish your sentence right now.
Do you remember? Okay. Do you remember this?
Because the CDJ, I think it was either on sync or something, but it was going way too fast, right?
The DJ before me had sync on, and I've never experienced turning sync off yet. This was when the CDJs were pretty new. I've never had to turn sync off.
That's like a humble brag, right?
Well, no. Well, I mean, whatever. But like. Yeah, so my intro's playing it at like a hard style beat, and I'm just like, and it's supposed to sync with the video on and I was just like, what's going on? And I'm yelling at Tony, I'm like, fix it! He's like, I don't know.
I remember that, yeah.
I came up to you later, I was like, that was my bad, actually.
In the moment, man, I completely get it, and it's crazy because when there's 5,000 people staring at you, it's like that holy shit moment, you know?
Yes,
and he's been on both sides of that transaction, so it kind of helps, you know what I mean? Like, you understand the tension from both sides, you know? Because I've been that guy, too, where you get up there and you have a time slot, and it's from here to here, and you get up there and some shit doesn't work, and you're like,
yeah. We
great.
talk about
this is the moment I've planned my past week and a half around, and here we are, you know.
And that's another thing, too. Another skill that you need to have is be able to take blame. Because it's always the stage manager's fault.
Yeah, there you go.
Just accept it and move on.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time on the podcast that, you know, you have to be prepared for not everything to go perfect, you know.
Yeah, it's very, very, very high intensity. A lot of nerves. Yeah,
even in the clubs though, man, like, you know, you might have like an idea of how you want to play a set, but maybe the crowd didn't show up like you thought they were going to, and now you got to like read the room a little bit differently. It's just, there's always going to be some adversity. You just got to be ready for it, you know?
Absolutely.
I got a joint question for you guys. You know, I imagine most of the people who are watching this are from Columbus, but like, what's the Dayton scene like? Like, who are the big players? I mean, obviously you have you both in like the EDM electronic scene, Fatty Lumpkin in the hip hop scene, and then could you fill out like, I know Mo does like the mobile stuff for you guys, Trips in the electronic scene as well. Could you guys just like fill out okay, if you need a wedding DJ, you got to hit up this person. If you need like a club DJ, it's these three guys. And just take us through the Dayton scene a little bit.
To be quite honest, Dayton really doesn't have much of a scene at the moment. I mean, you have Fatty, which is, you know, and then a couple top 40 guys that are very spread out, but there's not much in Dayton. Mass closed down.
Oh no!
Damn.
I did not
Yeah.
know that, bro. When did that happen? Like
Yeah, that
COVID?
happened actually pre-COVID.
Wow.
That happened. There was a lease issue with the building where the owner wanted to buy the building, or not the owner, but Luke, the owner of Mask, he wanted to buy the building. The owner wasn't trying to sell, and so he dipped. And
So what's next?
So where's
luckily
that
it
sound
happened
system
before
at?
COVID. Huh?
Where's that sound system at, though?
It's in storage.
It's here in the rack.
Boy, we're talking about that after the
Yeah,
show, dog.
put that on some options.
Watch like
Man.
Ocean's 11. What's like the best heist movie? I gotta like prepare for this shit. We're going in to get
Come
a
on,
boy,
bro.
baby.
We're gonna need
Yeah,
a whole
man.
crew.
What?
But yeah, that's crazy. So is it gonna? Do you see that spot opening as something new in the future, or is it just done?
As far as Mask, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
right after COVID hit, he was still looking for new venues. I don't know if he's settled on one yet or what his plan is. I know he wants to reopen something, but I just, everything with this COVID is what if right now.
No kidding, man. But anyone
Not
else
just
you guys want
sound,
to
but
shout
so
out?
many lights.
Maybe-
Say again, all the lights?
yeah,
Yeah, they're
lights
all
are
in
great, too.
storage too.
It's a lot. Yeah. Go ahead.
So many lights.
Is there anyone else you just want to shout out? Since I mean, I got that question kind of got derailed, but is there anyone you guys want to shout out who's like doing good things in the DJ scene in Dayton?
Chris Lutz.
Yeah, we know Chris. He
Yeah,
he
Chris
does the crew
Lutz.
stuff.
Icicle, DJ Icicle. I know he just dropped. I don't know if it's an EP or a full length. But I haven't really been super active in what's going on, because I've just been so.
Everything's on pause.
Sure.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's hard to gauge, and with Dayton especially, like these things wax and wane, right? As far as like the strength of the scene, and what that means. And so like I've long passed, panicking about that because I'm like,
Yeah.
the first time I got into the scene, it was down, and then I saw it come up and come back down. So I know how it's like a sine wave, it goes up and down. And so I know that it'll be back strong, and I'm sure, when COVID and comes to whatever inevitable conclusion, and we're able to get back to some sense of normalcy, people are going to be itching to get out, and I'm sure there's going to be some renaissance.
For sure.
But these things affect Dayton, I think, in kind of an extreme way, because our scene has historically almost been, I don't want to say entirely dependent, but it really has a lot to do with what's happening in surrounding cities like Columbus, Cincinnati, Indy, Louisville. Dayton is almost like a central hub city of all those things.
And all the schools need to be active, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the reason a city and a scene our size can exist is because of our location and our accessibility from a lot of those places, as far as bringing bigger names and stuff. And yeah, when it's low, it feels really low, and when it's high, it feels really high
Absolutely.
here.
Yeah, with UD right down the street for the longest time, they didn't even really tell their students. They told their students in a roundabout way to not go past a certain point into downtown during their orientations, which that's where Mask was. That's where all the club was going on, So all the UD students stayed pretty much within their little district. So it was hard to get them to come out, but now they're coming out. Well, pre-COVID.
Before we move on, and I forget, please tell me, because I like the name DJ Icicle. Please tell me he words it as I and then SICKLE.
I'm not
That'd be
really
cool.
sure how he spells it.
No worries. Just wondering.
You could go grab that on IG for your secondary project.
There
Asking
you
for
go.
a friend.
What do you call it? Alias? What do you call it?
Yeah.
Alias.
Yeah. Actually, Crep, why don't you take them into show and tell?
Yeah, I know this is gonna be a good one. So basically, guys, you know the drill. We do show and tell every episode to show off some DJ gear. Sometimes it can be non-DJ related. We've had some wedding rings. We had a baby.
Had a gun.
We had all.
I don't have any babies.
We have multiple pets been shown, but
Yep.
whatever, something that means something to you, and I want you both to do one if possible. I don't know if Tony has anything there, but maybe.
Tony's got a
So
bit
let's
of
do it.
top, man.
Yeah, I brought
Let's-
two things with me,
Okay.
actually, and they're both music related.
Perfect.
One, so I got into music. Well, not music, actually. When I got into electronic music, the two guys that really influenced me in the direction that I am right now when I play music is Sasha and Digweed. So a few years ago, for my birthday, it was just so random that it happened to fall on my birthday. I got to throw a party at Mask, 2 floors, and
Oh man.
bring Sasha.
Can you put that closer to the, if possible? Yeah.
You
That's
know,
so
when
cool.
I hit the booking agent that I had booked, because I did Green Velvet here in town, and I asked if they had anybody available on, April 8th, and she said, well, the only person I have available is Sasha. And I just was just like, holy shit, And
I guess we
just,
could take him.
yeah, and
All we have is the favorite and best option for you.
I literally
That's cool.
had to take a triple take at the email because I was like, no way, right? So, but yeah, I got to have him on my birthday, and then this right here, getting to be direct support for this guy, right?
Wow.
Is that the Cincy one?
That was the Sensi one, yes.
I
sir.
was there, and I was gonna bring this up anyway about that. That was at the time the best show experience I've had that wasn't a festival. And watching you open, I was with Alex Heasley, or wait, no, you guys had a guy that used to work for you named Alex that did lights. Do you know what I'm talking
That
about?
did lights.
Yeah, I don't know. But I was next to this dude that was doing the lights for your show, and you
Okay.
just crushed. It was a techno set,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, it was like a.
And it was so good.
Thank you.
And Avicii was really good as well. And it was when he was not, massive yet. I mean,
Right.
he did have really good songs out, don't get me wrong, but he was still on the rise, and he just
Yeah, that was my second time I got to open up for him at Sugar Bar 2. Well, it was actually, I was direct support at that show, but the one in Columbus, it was Cazette and Avicii on tour, and I got to play that one as well. But that show in Sensi was just,
heck
Yeah.
yeah. I do want to go back to some show stuff with you, but let's go to David's show and tell.
Yeah, so I went a slightly different direction, and so if you've ever, you guys have both been guests on our show, so as soon as you walk in that I'm some kind of retro gaming hyper nerd, right?
Here we go.
So I brought, but it does have to do with my musical influence, so I brought this.
What is that?
This is the Commodore 64 personal 8-bit computer from the 80s. This is what they call the bread bin model. So in case you guys have like a radio audience listening, this is like the dark brown keys and kind of a light tan colored Commodore 64. The one that I mostly used as a kid was the white one. It was called the 64C. But this thing, a lot of kids grew up on Nintendo or Sega or whatever. And I had a lot of consoles growing up, but this was really what got me started in both my interest in video games and also electronic music. Because one thing that this old 8-bit computer is known for is what's called the SID chip, basically the audio synthesizer that's built into this thing. It was just like a 3-voice, dirty analog synth built into this thing, and it had like a couple of simple envelopes and filters and stuff, and it had this really amazing, raw, very identifiable sound, especially later in the 80s and early in the 90s when composers really started figuring out how to exploit the chip. They started coming out with all these weird, like, fast arpeggio sounds and stuff that would be stereotypical in, like, if you listen to chip tunes now. A lot of those sounds come from this guy.
Let me see the outputs on the back of that thing.
Sure.
That's
So,
entertaining right there.
Yeah, so it's got a
Oh my goodness.
it's got a cartridge port because
Yeah.
so that was one thing about the Commodore is let me grab there we go. So it was able to accept cartridges, floppy disks, and cassettes, data sets. So there's a port for that. There's a serial port and a video port. And then another like an RF video port, so you could hook it up to like the TVs with the rabbit ears.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that was one thing that was cool about these things too. Is it was a personal computer that you could hook up to a television set. So you could get started by just buying the keyboard unit, which actually houses the computer itself. And then you could expand to a disk drive, and then you could expand to a proper monitor and whatever. And I grew up
you play Warzone on
very
it?
poor, so that worked out for us. Say again?
Can you play Warzone on that? B-Funk wants to know if you can play Warzone.
The funny thing is now with retro gaming, people my age, like 30s and 40s, older millennials and Gen Xers are, there's like a strong YouTube and web community for retro gaming. And so now there's like modern games, quote unquote modern games, being made, released in 2021 for platforms like this.
Wow.
And there's like full music albums being released on Sega Genesis cartridges. Like it's
so cool.
Hey,
whatever, man. People,
stuff.
The internet is amazing.
People love the times of the Sega and the Nintendo 64s of the world and all that stuff, man. A lot of people, back in the day when they couldn't afford a Sega, or I'm sorry, like a Super Nintendo, they're like, man, I wish I could have got that. Now they can get it, and they can get all the games that were on it.
Yep,
you know what
absolutely.
I mean?
David,
So,
I got to stay here, man. Oh, wait, you were going to say something else?
No, go ahead. I think we're going to the same place, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah, dude, because I was thinking really hard about, okay, what would be like a good gamer question? Because I know like it goes deep for you. And I came up with this one. What was the first game that you beat to 100%, and what was the last game that you beat to 100%? So kind of taking us through like the beginning of the start of like two of your favorite games. Like, and for those of you guys who are maybe not gamers, beating a game to 100%, and we're not talking about like you beat the end boss, you're good. We're talking about, you went on all the side quests, you picked up every coin, you rescued every princess, like whatever the game had, you beat it to 100%. So David, I know there's got to be a couple that you did. I want to hear about them.
That's actually pretty tough to answer because I tend to go very wide and not very deep with video games.
Okay.
So Colin, sorry, my dog's over here. I have a studio dog. Hush, buddy.
Nice.
I tend to I have to pick my battles because my gaming time is limited, right? So I'll go deep on one or maybe two titles at a time, and everything else I just kind of dabble in. So I've really taken to like more arcade type games lately in retro gaming because that's stuff you can jump in and out of and you don't have to spend 150 hours on.
Unless you're that guy from the Donkey Kong documentary.
Yeah, so that being said, I have a history of abandoning games, I guess is what I'm getting at. I'm really bad about like I love Final Fantasy titles, but I don't think have I ever finished I finished 13, which was on autopilot for the first half of the game. But like 7 Remake, 9, I think I've abandoned all of them at some point. Like I play them to 85%, and then for whatever reason I get distracted by something in life, and then I'm like, it seems like really involved to get back into something that deep, To
be fair, I feel like they make games, like they try to make them impossible to completely finish, or, like some of the post... you kind of finish the game, but then you could still unlock stuff for like a $80 charge.
To some extent, I like the trend where there's thought put into the end game, in the sense of how do you keep playing this forever instead of just running out of content. I like that trend in gaming. Because there's a lot of old, especially like 80s games that are just inaccessible for how damn hard they are. Anyways, that's a long way around to answering the question.
By the way, I feel like we have
percenting. The first one I would say I'm confident in saying 100%ed would probably be Super Mario 64.
Yes.
Ooh, okay.
So you got all the stars.
I got all 120 stars. I, beat the final level. I found Yoshi on top of the roof. I found every secret and exploit that was known at the time. I spent a whole summer, me and my friends, just beating the absolute tar out of that game.
You know what's funny is it did take like a whole season to do it at the time, but now if you go on YouTube, you can watch somebody do it in like an hour.
Yeah,
it's like crazy.
Crazy how optimized they get for that game.
Yeah, and so the last game that I would say, I'm trying not to be too strict with my definition of 100%ing because I rarely 100% anything to what would really be 100%, but probably Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
I
didn't play that one.
Because that game, it kind of has a new game plus mode. They call it master mode. So once you beat everything in the game, you can kind of start the game over, and all the enemies are harder and stuff. So I'm like 3/4 of a playthrough in master mode.
Got it.
But in the normal mode, I mean, I found every secret, every shrine, I'm obsessed with Zelda in general, but Breath of the Wild was really something special, I thought. It sucked me in a way that modern video games rarely do. Like, it really brought me into the world, and it has this sense of freedom that I've never really experienced in another video game, where you can stand on a mountaintop and look down in a cavern and go, I want to go there. And then you just do it. You just, like, jump off a cliff and you get out your hang glider. And if you can see it, you can go there. There's no loading screens. There's no, hold on, let me load a new chunk of the world. It's very fluid in that way. And I thought that Nintendo really, really nailed it with that. So I have nothing but good things to say about that game.
What you said about that game makes you think of like Grand Theft Auto 5, or just massive map, but you just,
similar sense
no
of freedom
loading
to that. It's like a living city.
Right.
Yeah.
Before we get into the gaming convo, first I want to say I think that a lot of DJs are gamers. So I think a lot of our listeners are gamers. So I think we're good there. But also, I just want to get your take on World of Warcraft, because one of my best friends is literally just doesn't leave his computer chair, and that's all he does. Is it healthy, and do you play it?
I actually am not real experienced with MMO RPGs.
Gotcha.
I played a little bit of.
Eat your life.
Yeah, I had some family members who were really into some of them, and it really did affect other parts of their life, like that escapism. And I was just like, and at the time, you had to basically pay a subscription for every one. And I think you still have to pay for World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
And I've never been one to commit to a game long enough to pay a subscription for a sole game. I'll pay for an Xbox Live subscription or whatever, but I'm not going to pay a monthly anything to play one game. So I guess I'm not really the target customer for that. I played a little bit of Guild Wars because it was free to play. And I play a little bit of, what was that game called? Warframe, which isn't exactly an MMO, but it kind of has some MMO-light stuff to it. But
like
it's a little too much of a commitment for me, and then I start feeling guilty that I'm not spending the time.
Yeah, I was going to say, like you said, you're not going to invest all this time into finishing a game, so.
Yeah, I'm too flaky with my gaming to commit to anything like that. So, but I'm still a nerd, so I play D&D.
Hey.
And so I committed to that, and I was like, okay, I can give one Saturday, one night a week to that one thing.
Just don't start talking about Star Wars,
in an MMO.
Don't start talking about Star Wars.
No, man. I feel like Dungeons and Dragons is absolutely something I would like. I just haven't found the right people to take me through the first thing, here's how you do it, because I know it's very deep. So having that newbie on your squad is kind of all right, this game is just for the newbie, get them acclimated to blah blah. But yeah, D&D is something I would definitely look into.
Yeah, it's all about who you play with and who your game master is and how they play.
All right, so the Columbus Gamer podcast continues. We're going to go to Tony, and we're going to ask him this question. Well, it's not really a question. A lot of people know your name in Columbus just from shows. Corrupt mentioned the Vici show. One of the ones that stuck out for me, I think it was Eric Prids. Were you at that? I think it was at whatever they called it,
I tagged
Courthouse.
with Aaron Osten.
Yeah, that was a fantastic set. Me and a good friend, DJ Boucher, who used to DJ in Columbus, we're just in the back, like right, like in that perfect spot in the room where you can hear everything perfectly. And him and he's doing his shuffling, I'm doing my dance stuff. We just look at each other like, this is an awesome set, even before we got to Prids, who was obviously amazing. But obviously people know you as a DJ. What do you do in your free time, man? I know you don't have much, but like, what interests you outside of DJing? You got some free time?
I work out. I like the gym, which I just started getting back to. I've been an athlete pretty much my whole life, so that whole gym life helps me out, not only physically but mentally.
Here.
I mean, even in my off time, like not stage managing, my hobby again is just DJing. So even all during COVID, all I do is just sit at the house. I scratch. I play Warzone. I play some Call of Duty. I got the new Cold War, which I've been playing a lot of. But I hang out with my Rottweiler. I'm just, that's about it, really. I don't.
That's cool, man. I just wanted to know because I know you a little bit better now, like after being on the podcast and hanging out and once you cut with somebody, I feel like you know them on a deeper level. Yeah, I just had to ask. Krupp, did you have any questions? Follow up questions for that?
I just want to go back to that Pritch show because that's. I was gonna say, I opened before you guys, right? And then I closed.
Oh yeah, you went on before us. Yeah, and then went on after.
I closed after Pritz, and I got to have a table with Kenny and them listen to your set, and it was incredible. And that's why I say Avicii is gonna be my second favorite of all time for you, because first of all, Pritz was my all-time favorite, and you guys really just set him up perfectly. And then I remember going backstage in the green room, and we were both in there with him. And I'll never forget that for the rest of my life because I started fanboying instantly, and I just started stuttering over my words talking to him and, talking about one of his songs he had just released, and you're looking at me like I'm an idiot, and I was like, I don't care, here we are. It's so crazy, man. But what a good time that was.
Super cool cat too, man. He's super chill. Yeah, that was a good show. Most of my memorable shows have actually been in Columbus. It's before PSG, when Donnie was doing a lot of the shows with Nick Walter. I opened for Deadmau5 twice. I opened for my two shows that I really loved there. One was Benny Benassi at Boma before it became Bluestone. And then David Guetta on Thanksgiving night was just out of this world. Like, sold out Bluestone, direct support for these two guys. It was just...
That's amazing.
It was, Columbus the scene, man, is amazing.
I've always loved playing Columbus.
B-Funk did want to ask you about the Oakenfold show. You guys played, you and Tony, or Oz10 played the best trance opening set he's ever heard, he said. Do you remember that? Can you remember that show?
Absolutely, I remember that show. Yeah, I actually played an Eric Prydz track during that set. Man.
Was that you're talking about the first time?
It was a remix of a Depeche Mode song. I can't even remember the name of it. Yeah.
What's that? Okay.
It's
Enjoy the Silence.
Enjoy the Silence. Yeah. And the bass in that song, man, like I played it almost towards the end, and the bass in that song was just way more powerful than anything that happened in that set. And I remember it just took that room from here to here.
B-Funk just said Personal Jesus, and that was going to be my guess.
That's what it was, Personal Jesus.
Yes. Dude, that bass when it hits, and the build is so good, and it's like
perfect
warming.
Vocal too.
You get like the goosebumps on your arms. Oh man.
Yes, that song is amazing. Yeah, a lot of Eric Prydz songs, man, they're so well put together, and when he's playing them, oh my gosh. It's
full control, man. It's in visuals too. Just top performer in any entertainment category.
He's still killing it just as much.
Yeah.
Like his sound has evolved in a way that is not. He's still in his niche and did not, sell off.
Right. Yeah, he's still his sound.
Yeah.
Yes, P-Funk. I do remember that set, and it was amazing.
I want to talk about just some music you guys been listening to lately. I know you've been listening to some Crystal Grid and things like that, but have you guys been, listening to new stuff or going back in the crates? What are you listening to recently?
So I've recently, I guess in the last year or so, discovered this type of music, and I'm a little bit late to the game, but it's called funk, and it's spelled
Phonk.
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 Yeah, funk.
Yes.
And so basically what it is it's kind of like an underground hip hop style, but it's very much influenced by 90s Memphis underground hip hop, which I used to listen to back in the day. So basically I'm talking about early 3-6 Mafia and other surrounding artists. So Project Pat, LaChat, whatever, Gangsta Boo, those kind of, yeah. So a lot of the stuff that they were making in the early and mid 90s before the, whatever you want to call it, the crunk club stuff started coming out, was this kind of like underground, loop-based, almost like horrorcore, but not super intense, just kind of like chanting and dark, and it wasn't really like structured rap verses. And in my early internet days, Napster and places like that, I downloaded a bunch of that old underground Memphis stuff and got really into it. So fast forward till now, this is very much a style of music where if you take that kind of underground, chanty, dark Memphis rap and overlay it with like a modern trap beat with 808s, then you've got funk. So it's instrumental or hook based rather than like full verses most of the time, and it's something I can just like leave playing in here and let the subs do their thing and just listen to it all day.
Nice.
I'd like to look more into that. Is there a certain site that is good to find that stuff?
Who's the Drake of funk music?
I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but I think it's Soudiere or something like that. It's like Soudiere. He would be like a good introduction to the sound. I think that's how I discovered that this was actually a sound. But the place that I've discovered most stuff is YouTube. I just go to, like, there's these mixes called, I think, Trappin' in Japan and various. Just search for the word funk. That's the nice thing about having a weird word like that, is it's easy to search. And they have those like YouTube radio stations that just play them live all day. And whenever I hear something I like, I'll either find it on Spotify or Shazam it or whatever, and I just build playlists out of that.
Good stuff.
How about you, Tony?
Me, I've been listening to the album is called While the World Was Burning by St. John. I'm sure you guys know St. John.
Yep.
Yeah. We did a few shows with him like 2017. Were you guys at the show at Bluestone with Carnage? It was all Pepsi. It was a free show. St. John actually played those two shows, and I got to work with him. And this was I really wasn't into all of the newer style of rap, and we did those couple of shows with him, and he put out a couple albums. I fell in love with his album, and his new one just came out.
So good.
It was November 20th, I think it came out. But I've just been stuck listening to him constantly. When I'm DJing, a lot of Bedrock. I've been diving back into a lot of John Digweed's label, Bedrock. Some Sci-Tech stuff, which is Dubfire's label. And then a lot of instrumentals and just scratching a lot.
That's stuff, man.
His scratching game has leveled up like 400% over the
I
last
can imagine.
year. Yeah.
It's amazing what happens when you spend
I can
time.
imagine.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are going to move on. I thought you guys were going to talk about something else, but we can go straight into David, I want to ask you before we go into tips for listeners, what does the future of DJing look like? There's been a ton of gear that's come out this year. You've talked about it a lot on your YouTube channel. Is that through Passionate DJ or the DJ hookup that those videos come up?
Both. So I kind of like being like what I would describe myself as a mid-level or mid-tier content creator. Like, we don't have thousands and thousands and thousands of people in our audience, but we're not beginners either. We're somewhere in the middle. So we kind of work deals with people to get gear, and the DJ Hookup is a company that I've built a good relationship with. I get access to gear, and I create some content for them in exchange. So I try to do a little here and a little there. So that's when you don't have 100,000 YouTube subscribers, you get access to gear however you can.
Yep.
And so we work with retailers, or sometimes one of us just conveniently buys stuff at the right time, and it's like, hey, can you please just bring that over here and let me unbox it in front of the camera? Yep. There's a lot of that going on. But if you go to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/passionatedj, basically you can find all of it there, because even the collaborative videos we've done with like the DJ Hookup, there's a playlist there that has it too, so you can find it all there. So yeah, I kind of divide my time there between podcast stuff and like hardware and industry stuff on the YouTube channel. But
got it.
The Rain 1 is probably the most exciting thing that's come out in recent.
What's that running?
Over the 3000s, you say? Over the 3000s?
Well, the 3000s are cool, but they don't do like a whole lot more than the 2000s. Like they
just run better, right? They're just better.
Like, I have nothing negative to say about them. They're great. The jog wheel especially is premium on those things, and like the build quality and all that, and the internals are right, all that stuff. But it also, like, I don't have a reason to buy 3000s if I already have 2000s. So it makes sense that they will be the next decks I buy, but I don't have a reason to get it. Whereas the Rain 1 to me is like, that's a new thing where I was like, oh, like nothing really on the market exists that is this thing right now. So it just catches my attention in a different way.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Now, sorry.
Go
So the general question is, what does the future of DJing look like? And then specifically,
Sure.
people are typically on flash drives and CDJs or Serato and CDJs. What do you think most DJs will be on in 2030?
Well, I think that DJ has evolved a lot since I've gotten into it in the last 10 or 15 years, and I think it'll continue to evolve in a direction that involves more fusion of DJing and production elements together, whether that means using sort of jam boxes like a Machine Plus or a Kai MPC, or something like that, or whether it means using something like the Denon players that have some of the performance pads built in and working like live remix elements into it. I think you're going to see more of those fusions of worlds, and I think that the definition of DJ will continue to mean something more than spinning one record into another record, as much as it may bother people who have been into it for a while to think of, like, I really like to think of DJing and production and live electronic music as separate things, but I think they just continue to meld together, and I think that'll continue to change in that direction. As far as what kind of hardware we're going to be using, I really have no idea. I think I think things will be a lot cloudier. There will be more confidence in streaming and cloud services and things like that. And probably some unfortunate level of automation that I don't like. But other than that, who's to say? I'm really not sure.
You know what, though? I feel like this is going to be a really good thing, and I don't think there's anything wrong with being a DJ that mixes, and that's all they want to do is just mix. But I feel like this is going to... I already think the benefit of having a DJ over a playlist that even knows how to sync it. We talked about this before, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
I still think having a DJ with the energy and seeing knowing somebody's live mixing is already great. And then what you add with the evolution of, what you can do live is only going to help DJs. So people need to see this as a huge opportunity,
Yeah, that's one thing. Like, we really try to cover both sides of that coin with Passionate DJ, where, like, there's this push and pull thing where, like, part of us wants to preserve the art of DJing as like its own little independent thing of crate digging and crowd reading and all those classic, DJing tropes or whatever. But then we're also like not interested in being dinosaurs, and we're always looking ahead to the future and what's coming and trying to review new hardware and stuff like that. We use modern hardware, we use digital stuff. So, it puts us in this interesting spot with Passionate DJ where it's like, okay, rather than being the old, like, grumpy get off my lawn types about this, like, let's do what we can to give these, whatever the future of modern electronic music performers and DJs is, maybe Passionate DJ can have some influence on, teaching some people about crowd reading and those things that you learn about from being a working DJ.
Sure.
Anyone else want to chime in on this?
Both things are important to us,
Thanks, Dave. Anyone else want to jump in on this?
I mean, I can't wait to have a drum pad that, you don't have to have a separate computer for. I know that you just said there's one out finally.
Yep.
Right? But it's expensive as hell.
Yeah, there's a $1,400 one and a $1,250 and a $1,000. So the $1,000 and $1,250 are the same unit. One has a built-in speaker, which I do recommend. And then that's the MPC Live 2 with the speaker, and the Live 1 doesn't have it. And then and the Machina Plus is $1,450-ish. That's the one I would use. If I start over, I'd go with the MPC, but I'm stuck on Machine. It's still amazing, but it doesn't have a speaker built in, and it does not have a built-in battery, which is kind of annoying once you've touched the MPC Live 2.
So no mountaintop sets for DJ Access.
No mountaintop sets. No, not yet.
Tethered.
Not yet, man. Unless I bring my little
But
generator.
As a USB user that wants to have a sample pad somehow, that I want to make a sample folder and I want to hit those live.
Yeah, I think we will continue to see more standalone gear. I mean,
Yes.
definitely. If I think your question was like by 2030, what's it going to be like? And that's looking way far ahead. But certainly by then we'll have both for DJs and producers and live.
We'll be on
musicians of
holograms,
all
hopefully.
types.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
that Minority Report? That movie where like everything's on the screen and they're just like
Yeah.
hand gestures.
Yep.
VR's doing that already.
I mean, it
well.
feels like, laptops are becoming, unless you're like a content creator or you do editing or, something like that where you need that kind of traditional keyboard, mouse, screen and stuff.
Ableton Live.
Yeah, having a laptop is less and less important in our daily lives because our smartphones and our tablets and our microwaves and everything else have all this functionality, that where it's less critical. So, yeah, I think standalone gear will be a big trend. People seem to love it. I'm sure that someday there will be the standalone version of the Rain 1, all in one turntable thing. And then there's going to be, I like to fantasize about there being a tractor version, the Control S8 that's all standalone and doesn't require a laptop, that sort of stuff.
I have
That'd
a
be my
question
guess.
real quick for all three of you to chime in on anyway. SD card versus USB, it's something that we haven't really talked about on this podcast because most people don't play on USBs or SD cards unless, whatever. But I haven't seen a lot of people that I've, headliners come through my places that have chose to play on a SD card. Why is that? Like, are they not durable? Do they get stuck in the CDJs too much? Are they going to fix that? Like, I don't know what it is. It's always USB.
I think it's because USBs are easier to carry around. And just hear me out. So like an SD card, like, if that's in your pocket, those, and I don't know anything about that part of the computer, but like those
Contacts.
those contacts are exposed, right? So anytime you expose them to dirt or anything in your pocket, your keys, whatever, I just think it's easier to carry around a flash drive because SD cards are typically faster. If I'm right.
I think it varies, but I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to say anything that's wrong. But
I mean, they
I think it
got
has
really
a lot
fast
to do-
USBs now.
I think it just has a lot to do with the fact that USB thumb drives are more familiar.
Mm-hmm.
They're easier to keep track of. Like SD cards might be literally too small for this, right? Because they're just too easy to lose. And if you think about trying to do a changeover in a dark, crowded club, it's a lot easier to grab your flash drive than it is to like, you know, push the stupid thing and make it click out, you know.
And if you're not playing on your own gear, you don't know if that thing's going to eject or what's going on. So
it could be stuck in there forever till the end of time.
Gotcha.
I do recommend having a backup SD card because you never know when the flash drive that you're using is going out, or not either your flash drive or the flash drive slot. So just having a backup SD card with, you know, emergency music, I do recommend.
Shit, backup USB too.
Yeah, both of them.
Yeah, I have a background in IT. I used to be a systems administrator. I recommend all of the redundancy in the world.
Yes.
Have a backup of your backup of everything.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you know, you spent an extra $150. Worst case scenario.
Right.
All right, so we're going into advice mode. I want to do like as long as we can, just advice, so you guys can't give it out anymore. I want to start with Tony. Tony, stage management. All of us have played on big stages before, festivals. We've seen it go well. We've seen it go not so well. So I want to start with Tony, but like 3 things if you could tell every DJ before they play a festival set, before they come and they be on like a big ass stage, what they should know. And then I want to hear, you know, 1 or 2 from Corrupt and David as well. But yeah, Tony, going to you.
First and foremost, know the gear that you're playing on. Be on time, and just be in the moment, soak it up, enjoy it, because that might be your only shot.
Cool.
But definitely, I mean, I can't even say enough, know your gear. I've had several times where people's come up and not known even the CDJs themselves, you know.
Like me.
At least get up there, you know, early to know that your flash drive works. All that stuff. I've had people accidentally hit pause and not even realize that they hit pause and turn around and look at me like the equipment just fucked up. You know what I'm saying? But it's not the equipment. It's the fact that you just hit the wrong button, you know, and just know those little things. But yeah, I mean, know your gear.
Down to what? So, I mean, I'm just pushing a little bit further on this because, you know your gear, it seems like someone would, like, hear that and go, oh, okay, I know my gear, and walk out. But when you say know your gear, like, how deep? You know every button on the controller? Should you know every in and out? Should you have a checklist before that, like, okay, I need to put all of my crossfaders on the right channels because, you know, Corrupt plays with the up faders and I play with the crossfader. Does having, like, a checklist like that help? Do you see anyone do stuff like that?
I mean, like everything, practice is perfect, right? So whatever you're doing at home or wherever you're practicing at, as you're constantly practicing, yeah, your mixer, make sure, you know, like if you started everything at 12 o'clock, make sure when you look down at your mixer, everything is at 12 o'clock. Make sure that if you don't use the crossfader, make sure that everything on every channel is on through so you don't accidentally hit the crossfader. And, you know, again, when people do something like that, the music goes out, they stop and they turn around because they don't realize that they didn't have those things on through and the crossfader went to the left and cut their right deck out.
If there's a front of house sound guy and he says something like, can you give me more master, it helps to know what that means. You know what I mean? Whereas that might not even come into play in your home setup because maybe it's hooked up to your booth control or some other knob. Know where your master control and attenuation and stuff is if they're like, hey, I need more signal.
And know also that you don't have to push red to get it louder if you have a front of house sound.
Took one of mine.
You don't have to get up and turn your trims all the way up and get louder than the next guy, you know, because it sounds like shit. Keep your levels right, you know. Your sound engineer, if you're on a festival stage, you'll have a front of house guy that will level you and mix you and keep you right. You know, don't feel like you have to be louder than the next guy after you, you know. And a festival stage is definitely different than a club. You know, a club, if you're obviously supporting act for somebody, you're going to warm up to that person. Festival stage, man, give it all you have. You know, come out there, go balls out.
Cool, thanks, man. Corrupt, you said you had a couple?
Yeah, well, I'll start right there. I mean, when you get to play a festival, you're not opening for anyone, and it's your time to to display what you want to be known for, what energy you want to be known for. Obviously, don't play whoever's after you's music
Right.
or after that. But and then as far as the sound guy, you know, they don't want to deal with you redlining. I mean, these guys are professionals. It's almost an insult. Like a lot of these festival sound guys are really good, and they'll turn you down. They'll limit you. So be respectful to the levels. And as far as the know your gear thing, often when you play at a festival, you're going to play on what they have. And so if you're used to playing on your own controller, it might not be allowed at the festival. So you need to learn the gear that's going to be there. It's not just about
learn the
your
concepts of what you're actually doing on the mixer, not just how to do it on your mixer or your gear.
And fading off of that, Corrupt, I don't get a lot of communication from locals. You know, they feel like they can just show up and everything's going to be all good. Now, communicate through email prior to. Make sure you know what they have, and if they don't, and if it's okay that you bring your controller. You know, if there's no room, or if it's okay, which most of the time it's cool, but I don't like getting surprised. I don't like people walking up with, you know, their stuff and I'm here. You know, I just make sure you communicate with whoever you need to let the stage manager know that what you're bringing, what you play on, etc.
And I would end with, you know, final advice is, you know, if you're going to use sync, that's great. Just turn it off for the next artist, you know. That's it.
He's like, I'm serious, yo.
Or know
I mean,
your gear.
Yeah. Yes.
I would just say talk to your stage manager. Introduce yourself. You know, ask them how they're doing. I mean, if they're busy, obviously don't do that. But, you know, if you can catch them, if you're there early like you should be, catch them before the set. Hey, is there anything I need to know about the gear? Am I going to be using my mic? Am I patching through yours? You know, if I need more volume and you want me to leave your room on the master, or are you guys just going to turn me up? Run through some YouTube videos. Ask, you know, hit up Tony on the DMs. Hit up Corrupt on the DMs and just say, hey, what are some good questions to ask my stage manager? And don't, you know, talk their ear off. They have a lot of work to do and probably can't talk. But, you know, I think it might help you to, you know, understand what they're doing. And then they're going to remember you as, if you do need help down the road, hey, that's the guy that talked to me for a minute. He's cool. I'm going to help him out. I mean, Tony, you probably help everyone out no matter how they treat you. But, you know, it's easy to work for or help somebody out when they've been a decent person to you, Corrupt. We talk about this all the time on the podcast.
Yeah.
All right, going on to advice number 2. David, if you could tell DJs 3 things before coming on a podcast, what would they be?
Before coming on my show, or like on like a talk show?
Yeah, exactly.
The first thing is everybody hates their own voice, so don't sweat it. I don't think I've ever recorded somebody where they didn't hear it afterwards and go, oh man, I hate the way I sound.
Yeah, at least not for the first time.
So get over it. That's just part of it. You get used to it.
I still don't like how Mike sounds. Go ahead. I'm just kidding.
Nailed it, man.
If you're doing a video podcast, and this is good streaming advice as well, it's almost entirely about lighting. Upgrade your lighting before you upgrade anything else. Before you buy a new camera, before you do anything, get some forward-facing lighting, preferably at like 3/4 angles on either side, kind of light up either sides of your face, an overhead light if you can do it, and a little bit of rear fill lighting. And you know, if you go and buy some really cheap panel lights, you know, LED lights on Amazon, you can get all that done for pretty cheap, for cheaper than buying a new camera, and you'll be surprised how good your shitty webcam can look with making sure that your shadows aren't, you know, coming across your face, and you know, it's stuff like that. So let's see, I need to come up with a third.
While you're thinking, David, I'm gonna tell everyone, if you heard that and you're like, oh my gosh, that's what I've been missing, I don't have the lights, just Google a video on YouTube. It's called 3-point lighting. It'll be one of the first three that pop up. You know, you feel free to watch all 3 of them. The more info you can get on lighting, the better. But 3-point lighting is probably like the simplest and then also cheapest option, because you're only buying 3 lights. I mean, unless you're just buying 1 ring light. But, you know, David, you probably wouldn't recommend only having 1 light unless you're doing this like really casually.
Yeah, I mean, in general, like without getting too technical, like the best advice is more light is generally best than less light. You know, it's better to have more lighting for, especially for something like a webcam, within reason. I mean, don't point like 3 spotlights in your face, but you know, I've got some like $30 Amazon LED panels that I've got mounted to the ceiling that light up our faces. They have adjustable color temperature on it and stuff, and it goes a long way to getting away with cheaper gear longer, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we said lighting. We said don't worry about your voice, and
I guess the other would be sort of goes along with like knowing your audience, but it's more like kind of do a little bit of homework before you try to pitch yourself to be on a show. Like, you don't have to be a super fan. You don't have to be like, oh man, I've been listening to you guys since 2016. You know, it's nothing like that, but at least know what we do before you come on, because a lot of people will just see something that was shared on social media, and it's some clip of somebody, maybe even somebody they know or somebody they recognize, and they're like, oh, they, you know, I want to go play a set there, and they just like send you a DM like, yo, let me get in on those decks sometime. Like, Passionate DJ as a brand, like we want to bring more to the table than that. We want to have a conversation. We need to know a little bit about how you are on the mic. We need to know if we're okay with the way you kind of handle yourself online to a certain extent. You know what I mean? Like, we don't want to bring like literal Nazis onto the podcast or something and then have that be a thing. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of vetting that goes into that, and we rarely, I won't say never, but we rarely respond to those anyway. I put Tony in the position to be able to seek people out for a reason, because he's a tastemaker in that sense. He knows what to look for, who would be able to have an interesting conversation on the show and all that kind of stuff. And it also puts a little bit of distance between people who try to reach out to me directly to ask that, because I'm not great at responding to that. And I'd rather have somebody who is like fully focused and in charge of that. You know what I mean? So it really helps. With all that being said, it really helps if you're going to approach, or even if you are approached, at least know, like, what is the purpose of that show? Why are you there? You know what I mean?
right. I mean,
It's
I've said
just
it,
like when you're playing a gig, it's the same thing. Like, what kind of crowd is this, and what are they expecting from me?
right. Yeah, I've said like different iterations of this like all the time, but basically, if you want to be involved with something, do your homework, identify what's important to them, and then find out a way that you can add value, and then send them like basically, hey, I did this, I understand this, and I think I could help you this in a short format that doesn't take a long time to read. And I 99% of the times you will get a response back, unless you're talking to somebody like Diplo. You know what I mean? Like, if you're talking to a real content creator who is like asking for likes and subscribes and comments, that's the best thing you can do to get involved, I think. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like, the point isn't, like, what people don't want to be buttered up and, like, coaxed and sugared into like, oh, okay, you were really nice to me, so I'll bring you on the show. It's like, you know, we care, we're passionate about the brand, too, so we want to know what you can bring to our audience, because they have a certain expectation, you know, and it's just like gigging out. You know, you're not going to bring a certain kind of DJ to a certain kind of venue if you know what you're doing, because if it's not the right mix, it's not the right mix.
And then the final part of our advice section, I'm going to give you guys each a chance to just give a tips for listeners, DJs in general. This could be any secret to DJing, and preferably something that the audience hasn't heard before. Tony, it's on you.
Who taught me?
No. Tips for listeners, just general tips for listeners, something you want to share with the community.
Oh, tips for DJs. Man, just, oh boy, tips. Just practice a lot. Just expand your mind on music. Don't get wrapped up in just one or two genres of music. Really expand.
I think that's really easy for DJs to do, like get hyper focused on like David Michael plays deep house, so I have to look in the deep house section of the record shop or Beatport or wherever it is. you know. And if you really create that bubble for yourself, then you're, even if what you want to do is deep house, you can learn a lot about deep house by listening to like funk music and hip hop and stuff like that, you know. Sorry to cut in.
No,
but
no, go ahead.
That
You're
was
good.
a good point.
You're good. Yeah. That's really, I don't know. I'm not.
I'll jump in on one.
Jump on.
Mine is, so this is easy for me to say because I'm, in comparison to somebody like Fatty Lumpkin or like a real ass turntablist, I'm a pretty lazy DJ. But mine would be it's okay to let it play, just to put it in a couple of words. So like sometimes like it's okay, like as in talking about the preserving the art of the DJ thing, like sometimes it's okay to let the music talk and you don't have to do anything to it. I'm very light on things like effects and stuff like that. I tend to talk through track selection and long blend mixes of like, you know, techno and house and stuff like that. But like I said, it's easy for me to say, but sometimes I play other styles of music, some hip hop and other things. And sometimes like the best thing you can do, especially in a live environment, is to just let the song play out. Not always, but sometimes that's the right choice. So yeah, it's okay to let it play.
Works for me.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And I think that's. Oh yeah. Do you guys want to ask? Do you have any questions for us or topics that you wanted to cover that we didn't? I know we kind of wanted to talk about DJ gear, but I feel like we touched on it a little bit. So, anything you guys want to talk about?
Corrupt. I want to ask you a question because
Yeah, let's do it.
you were getting it. You know, right before COVID, you were doing a lot of touring. Playing festivals. I mean. What's it like for you right now through all this?
Yeah, man. I just got sad kind of because it was literally as far as my open format adventures, I was definitely peaking. But it's been very challenging, but the worst is over in my mind, and I have a lot of things to look forward to now. I'm still with my agency that was helping me, and they're committed to me. I'm committed to them, and lots of good things coming. I'm optimistic about the worst being over with the pandemic.
Same.
Not that I have a timeline on things, but you know, I mean, where I was, I plan on getting there and past that. You know, I'm still in this.
Do you feel like you're on more of a level playing field now?
What do you mean by level playing field?
So when we open back up, I mean, there's going to be so many gigs that you probably won't have time. And now, you know, you have yourself, and then you have your Hardwells, your Tiestos, and your big DJs. Now, I mean, everything opens back up. Everybody's kind of on that same.
So yes, so I talk about that all the time. Like a lot of these artists that were, you know, making 10K and up, it's going to be really hard to get that right away. I don't care who you are or what you've done. Everyone's going to be needing discounts. And we talk about that all the time with up and coming DJs. Like, be realistic with these venues, work with these venues so they can see you first, so they can see what they're getting. I'm not saying that you should play a bunch of 6 months of free shows, but you know, when we start booking shows, whenever that is, when we start bringing national acts, they're not going to get what they were getting pre-COVID. I'm telling you that right now.
That trend started when we started doing the drive-ins.
Yeah.
And it's not just the artist. I mean, it's everybody that works from the artist all the way down to stage manager, production manager, promoter. You know, it's everybody.
So when I think about the hit that I took, I know I'm not alone, and because I don't feel alone, I feel also united in the come up again, and I feel like, you know, we will get there. Everyone will get back to, you know, enjoying the industry as a career and being steady financially. So it was tough, man. To answer your question, the last 2 years have been incredible, and I'm just excited for what's coming. You know, I'm just glad that, you know, this isn't going to be like a career-ending situation. It could have
Sure.
easily done that to me. There was a moment where I had to get other finance or money coming in doing other things, you know.
Mhm.
But the pandemic has helped me. It's helped me budget like better than I ever have. Got me into some other things, and very, very humbling experience.
Good, man. Good.
DJ B Funk asks, do you guys think that anyone will get screwed more by the reset money wise? And shout out to Karsten Gamer. I see you in the chat.
Will anybody get screwed more?
Yeah, he says, will owners, DJs, or agencies or fans be screwed? I think fans are going to be okay. Owners are going to be okay. I think the DJs and like the front-facing customers are going to have the hardest time because, you know, owners are going to be squeezing. Staffing might be lower. They're going to be trying to squeeze everything out to kind of recover lost gains, right? And I think they're not going to sacrifice their own dollar, so they're going to sacrifice the dollar of their employees. And I think, but not at the expense of the customer experience. I think fans and owners are going to be okay, and everyone else is going to suffer for a little bit until we get back on track. That's just my opinion. I have no evidence or stats to back that up.
I feel like the bigger artists you are, I'll be real quick. There's certain venues that you might have been able to play that those owners were okay with taking a break even or like a small loss to bring a big name and throw a big show. I don't think that's going to be the case for a while because they're going to want to make up some losses. And I mean, I think this is a good opportunity for smaller producers and mid-level. Those mid-level guys have a huge opportunity right now to, you know,
That's the
travel.
level playing field that I'm referring to exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, there's probably also going to be like this. It's going to be funnel shaped, right? Like there's going to be all these performers like that haven't been able to play anything out, and they've built up all this material over the pandemic, and we're all going to be competing for the same space, just like before, but only worse because there was a build up. So it's going to be competitive. So at the same time, one thing that many of us, content creators, DJs, producers, musicians, anything. A lot of us have leveled up our video and our streaming skills, and our chops over the last year or so because we had no choice. So a lot of us have better cameras and better lights and better, all of us know how to use Zoom now. And so don't let that stuff fall off. You know what I mean? Like that stuff is still gonna be part of whatever the transition into the new normal is.
Yeah, man. DJs are web designers, social media managers. I feel
They're
like
all the
DJs
hats.
all the hats.
Stockbrokers, bro. Come on, man.
All right, so I think we can kind of jump into, you see Corrupt Shirt 614, 614 Releases. Guys, we kind of flipped how we're doing this in 2021. So we now have a Columbus DJ podcast. Let me put the link up here. We now have a Columbus DJ podcast Spotify page. We're featuring any Columbus artists that are doing great things, as well as anyone who's been on the show. So if you or someone you know has put out some music, it's on Spotify, and you think they deserve a spot on our playlist, let us know. We want a bunch of people to like this playlist and be like looking at it. I was listening to it earlier, working on some content. It's fantastic. We got Intel, we got Corrupt in there, Governor, bunch of people. And all we're asking you to do, if you got any value from this podcast, you're not willing to like or subscribe, go on Spotify, just like that playlist, and show it some love every once in a while. We'll do our best to keep it up to date with who's putting out music. And if you guys could like that, I would see it as a personal favor. We only have 6 people on it right now, and we've been talking about it for 2 weeks. I know you're out there. I know you guys got Spotify. Please help us out. That would really help. And Corrupt, you beg too.
Yeah, guys. I mean, we just started the project, so we're but it means a lot to us, and I think overall for Columbus, it's going to be huge to have a platform. There's so much talent, and I'm sure Dayton too, which we're really going to be showcasing Ohio music talent, and this could blow up to be a huge movement. I'm very optimistic about just everyone supporting each other is just gonna be huge.
Passionate DJ guys, you guys are more than welcome to beg too. You don't have to though.
Yeah, so I won't miss the opportunity. Probably the easiest place to go if you want to watch our videos is just go to youtube.com/passionatedj. That's where they all pretty much go. If you are a mobile listener, you like listening podcasts, in your car, on your morning jog or whatever, you can also, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, you can listen to the audio version. We create videos and podcasts about DJing and about music, and we have a lot of fun doing it. We've been doing this for a long time, and we're always experimenting and bringing new people on the show, bringing you new hardware, bringing you new guests. Some shows are just for fun. Some shows are very nerdy and technical. We kind of run the gamut with that stuff. So, check us out. Once again, youtube.com/passionatedj. Also, Passionate DJ on Instagram.
Yep. And I'll just add to that, these guys, along with Mo and Trip, they're good guys. They're great DJs. The show's fantastic. Like, they've just been doing it for so long. How could it not be good? And
Right.
I took inspiration from them. Like, when I was on their podcast going, this was fun. I want to do something like this. We got Craft involved. So thank you both for doing what you do and inspiring DJs and, giving us the information on the gear we need and all the stuff that you guys do with Passionate DJs. Truly inspirational, and that's why we're here today. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We
Thank
love
you.
what you're doing here,
Yeah.
and we appreciate the opportunity to come on here and be guests on your show. It's nice to be able to work with other podcasters because, this is going to feel really easy. Like, we just turn off the camera and walk away and we're done. Like, we don't have to edit and publish and all that.
No, man, that's it. We're going to keep it simple for you. Appreciate you being on. Anyone else got anything to talk about, chat, including you? Anything you guys want us to do before we wrap up? We'll give you about a minute to do that. Guys, anything else you want to talk about?
I want to do a shout out for Lost in the Sauce. We just released the mix yesterday.
D-Saves.
D-Saves is my up and coming DJ in Columbus. Very humble, hardworking, open format DJ that I just see having a big position in Columbus. Crushed his mix. You can listen to it at soundcloud.com/corruptmusic.
Yeah, I'm gonna listen to that for sure because I listened to his first mix, and I think he's improved a lot since then. So I'll be looking forward to
exactly.
Looking forward to that. He was on the show earlier this year.
Yeah, but guys, we appreciate you coming on, David, Tony. You guys are good people. Keep being you,
Yes.
and maybe. We'll be on your show next, or 6 months from now we'll do another one or something like that. So
I'm just waiting for them to buy us out, man. What's your guys' capital at?
yeah, we've been waiting.
Yeah, James, we have a new format now, so we need to get you in here to do a full set.
Yeah,
I'd love that. Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing a lot more like trying to bring people into the room and show like what the artist actually does.
Okay.
So, we've been doing more pushes in that direction, and since you were last on, we still do the conversations and the interviews and stuff, but we incorporate it with the music now. So yeah,
I like
to have
it.
you back.
More features, the better time. Let's do it.
All right, Chad, I don't see anything. So, guys, thank you all so much for being with us today. I had a blast. Best of luck with all the content and everything going on, and we'll hope to see you on the dance floor here soon. Peace. We out.
See you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Keep
Have a
on
good one.
spinning.
Oh, yeah.